The kettle still hung over the fire. No one in the tent was alive to eat it. A ship had struck a reef, and the survivors were on islands with no fresh water. A preacher's wife and 6 of her children had been killed there. His eldest daughter was out at supper with her father. Her name was Judith Bastians, who was already on a list of 7 women the killers agreed to keep. Some of the survivors were killing the rest. No one agrees why. A man among them had beaten the eldest son to death. The court that hanged 7 other men spared him and put him ashore alive. She lived 8 weeks in the camp of the men who did it. The record does not say how. Almost everything anyone knows about those weeks comes from a file made by the officer who ran that court. He had sailed for help before the killing began. He was not there. The court wrote its reason on the page, and the reason was the service of the company. The same court gave him a boat and goods to trade with. No company record names him again. He is missing from a document that misses almost nothing. The file that stops naming him carries named defendants, dated confessions, itemized sentences, and a row of signatures at the foot of each one. It reads like a transcript. It is not one. Every word of it about the killings on those islands was written, compiled, and signed by Francisco Pelsaert, the upper merchant who commanded the voyage and outranked even the ship's skipper. He was in an open boat, or in Java, or at sea coming back, for every one of those killings. What he set down is confession testimony taken by him in a court he convened from men he was about to sentence. Several of those confessions were drawn under water torture, and the file records that itself in the formula it uses over and over. We have put him to torture in order to draw the straight truth from him. So what follows is not the story of a massacre. It is the story of the account that governs what we know of a massacre and of the household that account was written about. They came aboard at Texel in the last week of October 1628. Gijsbert Bastians held the post of predicant. The minister the Dutch East India Company put aboard its ships to hold services, bury the dead, and keep the church present at the far end of the world. He had his wife with him and 7 children. The eldest daughter was Judith. The eldest son, Bastian, had signed on in his own right as an assistant, which made him a company employee with a wage. How many people sailed with them is not a settled figure. The Western Australian Museum gives 322. The Dutch Australian Cultural Centre gives 332. The Australian National Maritime Museum says about 340. They differ because they are counting different classes of person and because no muster roll survives that would settle it between them. That spread is worth holding on to. Every important number in this story has one. There is one more thing in the record that is not Pelsaert's, and it matters later. The predicant survived and wrote a letter of his own, and it comes down to us independently of the file that tried the men who made him write it. The ship was new. She was carrying silver. The charter that put that silver aboard gave its owner the right to raise armies, sign treaties, build forts, and hang men in its own name, and gave nobody who sailed under it a court nearer than Java to appeal to. The Dutch East India Company was not a business with a government standing behind it. It was closer to a government with shareholders standing in front of it. Its ships went out heavy with coin and came back heavy with pepper, nutmeg, cloth and porcelain. And the ships that carried the coin out were the largest it built, Retourschepen, return ships, the whole voyage named for the half of it that paid. The Batavia was one of those, and she was on her first. Her course ran south from the Cape, east along the westerlies for as long as a navigator dared, then north for the Indies. run too far east, and there was a coast nobody had charted because nobody had wanted it. In the small hours of the 4th of June, 1629, she struck it. Around 40 people are thought to have died in the wreck and in the days immediately after it. The rest were ferried across to a scatter of low coral islands with no fresh water on them and almost nothing growing. Pelsaert's own journal puts about 180 people on the largest island and about 40 on the smallest, with him. Water was the whole of it. They had what could be got out of the wreck in barrels, and rain when rain came, and nothing else at all. So on the 8th of June, 4 days after she struck, Pelsaert took the ship's boat, the skipper Ariane Jacobs and some 40 others, and steered north for Java. That decision is the one every retelling argues over, and it deserves its logic before it gets its consequence. There was no water on those islands and no way of making any. Nobody was coming because nobody knew. A boat that reached the company's capital in the Indies, the city we now call Jakarta, could bring back a ship. A boat that stayed was another mouth. He was at sea in an open hull for nearly 3 weeks before Java came up over the bow, and he made it. It is a real feat of seamanship, and it is the reason there was anybody left to rescue. On the way north, the boat ran along a mainland coast, and twice the men aboard saw people on it. The journal describes black people entirely naked without any cover, and later 8 black men, each carrying a stick in his hand, who drew back when the men went towards them. Nobody landed, nobody spoke. A sighting is not a contact, and the record holds nothing more than the sighting. Behind him, on a sandbank the size of a few fields, he had left something close to 180 people, a hierarchy that existed only on paper, and no one with the authority to command them who had any reason to be obeyed. The paper hierarchy had a name at the top of it, and the name was Jeronimus Cornelisz. Before anything else about the man, the charges the file itself lays against him. He ordered killings and had other men carry them out. An infant was poisoned by Cornelisz himself with mercury sublimate, and then, still living, strangled by a company officer his councillors ordered to do it. He took Lucretia Jans, a passenger and a widow, into his tent and kept her there, in the journal's own words, used her as his concubine for 2 months against her will. She was not his companion, she was a captive under threat of death, and the file says so in the plainest terms it has. He had been an apothecary in Haarlem and bankrupt when he sailed. On the ship, he had been the under-merchant, second to Pelsaert. On the sand, he was the highest rank left. What he did first was arithmetic. He sent parties of soldiers off to other islands to search for water, on islands he is said to have believed had none, and he had the rafts stop coming. Fewer people, more water. Then he began removing the ones who were still there. The killings were done by a group that swore itself together twice. The first oath was written out and signed on the 16th of July, 1629, and it bound its signatories to keep 7 women alive. The 7 are named on the page. Judic Bastiaense is the third name on it. Her name is in the paperwork 5 days before the killing reaches her family. On the night of the 21st of July, the predicant and his eldest daughter were invited out to supper in the tent of a cadet, one of the men whose signature was on that compact. While they sat there, a party went to the family's tent, put out the lamp, and killed the predicant's wife and 6 of his children with adzes. The maidservant was called outside first. The record names some of the dead, and the naming is the only memorial they have. Maria Schepens, the predicant's wife. Bastian Giesbertsen, his eldest son, Vibrecht Klaas, the maid. Judik went back to a camp with the same people in it and lived there for 8 more weeks. The file contains no line about what that was like, and nothing here will invent one. How many died on those islands is not a figure that can be given flat. Published counts run from more than 100 to about 125. They run apart because they are counting different things. Men indicted for specific killings, or everyone dead by deliberate thirst and abandonment, or the wreck deaths folded in with the rest. The range is the honest answer, the precision is the invention. And then the arithmetic broke. The soldiers sent to die of thirst had found water. There was water on that island and food on it. Their leader was a soldier from Winschoten named Weber Hayes, and what he did with the reprieve was build. His men raised walls of stacked limestone without mortar on the low coral of the coast. Then they waited. On the 20th of August, a second oath went round the camp, and this one made Cornelisz Captain General. Twice the mutineers crossed the water to finish the soldiers, and twice the soldiers held. On the 2nd of September, Cornelisz went across himself to negotiate, and Hayes's men took him, killed 4 of his council on the beach, and kept him in irons. The mutineers elected a new captain the same day. On the 17th of September, he led them across for a third attempt, with muskets this time, and it had cost the defenders 4 wounded men when a sail came up on the horizon. Both sides broke off and ran for the water. Hayes got there first, rowed round the point, and told the rescue party what had happened on those islands, that they had murdered, quote, more than 125 persons, men, women, and children as well. The ship was the Sardam. Pelsaert was aboard her, and he had been gone 3 months and 9 days. He came back to an island of witnesses and no jurisdiction. What Pelsaert did next was, on the company's own terms, correct. He arrested the men Hayes handed him. He convened the ship's council, 5 men, himself at the head of it, and he examined the prisoners one by one, and he wrote down what they said. Where they would not say it, he had water poured into them until they did. Then he passed sentence. There was no appeal available anywhere within thousands of miles, and the officer who tried them was the officer whose departure had left them ungoverned. The sentences were drawn on the 28th of September. They were to be carried out on Monday, the 1st of October, and they were not. The journal gives the reason in one line. It blew so hard that it was not possible to go to Seals Island. They went across the next day. 8 condemned men were taken over. Cornelius was to have both hands struck off first and asked to be baptized, and was hanged. Others had a right hand taken first. The men on the gallows shouted revenge at each other and at him. 7 hanged. The 8th was a cabin servant of about 18 named Jan Pelgrom de Beja van Bemmel. The file calls him Jan van Bemmel and Jan Pelgrom in different places, and he is one man. He could not compose himself to die, the journal says, weeping and wailing and begging for grace. Therefore, on account of his youth, one has begged for his life. That reads like mercy shown to a frightened boy. The same file refuses the reading. Cornelius, examined, said that Pelgrom was daily begging him that he should allow him to kill someone because he would rather do that than eat or drink. In August he had asked to behead a young sailor named Cornelius Alders and had blindfolded the boy ready for it, and the sword was given to a stronger man instead. He wept about that too. He wept twice in this record, for opposite reasons, and the court that heard both spared him. Then Judic Bastians spoke. The examination that records it gives her a single clause, and it is the only line in the whole file where she acts. It reads, quote, "As has come to our ears through Judith, the daughter of the predicant, that Wouter Loos has said or boasted before this that he has killed with an adze Bastian Gijsbert's an assistant, her eldest brother. Los was a soldier of Maastricht, about 24. 4 separate confessions had already placed him in the party that went to that tent. He had been the captain the mutineers chose on the 2nd of September, and he had led the assault of the 17th. He had denied killing anyone. On her word, the council brought him back and put him to torture, and he confessed. He had beaten the eldest son underfoot with an adze until he was dead. Then he had taken the kettle of meat that hung above the fire outside and carried it to his own tent. That is the whole of it. A boy killed with a shipwright's tool and the supper taken next door. The confession was attested on the 14th of November. The sentence was already written. Wouter Loos was sentenced on the 13th. The day before the confession his victim's sister had produced was signed off. The same 5 signatures stand at the foot of both documents. Her word put her brother's killing into the sentence, and it did not change the outcome. And the file does not leave the reason blank. That is the part the retellings miss, and it is worse than a silence. The council states its grounds in sentencing him, preferring, quote, grace in place of rigour of the justice, and also the service of the General East India Company. The service of the company. Not his youth, not his remorse, not any doubt about what he had done. A use. On the 16th of November, the use was spelled out. Loos and Pelgrim were put ashore on the mainland with a small yawl and a written instruction. They were to make themselves known to the people of that land by tokens of friendship, and were given knives, beads, bells, and small mirrors for it. They were to learn what there was in those lands, be it gold or silver or anything of value. If a ship ever came near that coast, they might be picked up and report what they had found. And they were to keep God in mind. The court that could not spare 7 men could spare 2 if the 2 were useful. There was one more sentence passed on that ship that says the same thing about the process. Salomon Deschamps, an officer of the company, sat on the council that condemned the mutineers. He had also, on the order of Cornelisz's councillors, strangled the poisoned infant. The council sentenced him keel-hauled 3 times and 100 strokes before the mast, and his own signature is on the document that does it. Here the record becomes contested, so this next part needs care. 2 readings of what happened on those islands are live among historians, and a third position sits between them. Some old explanations can be cleared away first. Religious heresy as a proved motive is not one the documents support. The link between Cornelisz and the painter Torrentius is inference from proximity, and the Rosicrucian label attached to both was never proved against either. The plot to seize the ship before the wreck rests on Cornelisz's own word and on confessions taken under torture. The skipper Jacobs never confessed to it and was never convicted of it. That leaves 2. The first is Mike Dash's in his book of 2002, a premeditated conspiracy driven by a heretical belief that a man chosen by God could not sin, executed by a leader who planned it. The second is Jaco Kohler's in the International Journal of Maritime History. Not a conspiracy at all, but a social collapse under starvation, dehydration, fear, and the absence of leadership, recorded by a flawed judicial process and confessions obtained under torture. Alistair Patterson and Wendy van Duvenvoorde object to Kohler on mechanism, and the objection is a good one. If hunger and thirst drove the killing, why did the survivors not simply move to the richer islands nearby, as Hayes's men did? Both readings are built out of the same file. That is the limit on both of them, and it is the reading the source critics put last. Greta van der Rohe notes that the journal writes I over decisions the skipper actually made, and no document independent of Pelsaert's own trials has ever been found that could test the plot they allege. The ground has not settled it either. 21 individuals have been recovered from Beacon Island in close to 60 years of digging. On the fullest published count, the Western Australian Museum gives 14, against more than 100 documented killings. 7 of them on that count were thrown haphazardly into a mass grave, one skull with a piece smashed away. What the bones corroborate is the character of the violence, not its count. 4/5 of the dead are still somewhere on those islands, and nobody knows where. Pelsaert did not live long enough to be asked about any of it. He was dead within the year, and his compiled report went home to the company as an internal document. 18 years later, in 1647, a printer in Amsterdam issued it as a book, Ongelukkige Voyage, Unlucky Voyage, with 15 engravings on 6 copper plates, the ship on the reef, the killings, the gallows on Seals Island. It sold, and it kept being reprinted. Every book, opera, novel, podcast and documentary about the Batavia since has descended from a commercial product made out of a prosecutor's file, sold to a public that liked it. 4 centuries of retelling have not much troubled the file, but they have got other things wrong that were easier to check. For 4 generations, the stone building photographed as Weeby Hayes's fort was the wrong building, raised inland by guano miners between 1876 and 1879, holding no Batavia material at all. The 1629 walls are on the coast, and a 2026 study in the Journal of the Royal Society of Western Australia calls the coastal structure the oldest European building in Australia. Hayes himself was made a sergeant on that island at 18 guilders a month, and after he reached Java, the company lifted him again to 40 as a cornet. After that, the record stops. It does not close with a homecoming. It just stops. One more thing has to be raised and taken away. The 2 men put ashore in November are sometimes described as Australia's first European settlers, and sometimes as men absorbed into the Aboriginal communities of that coast. Neither is supported. Europeans had been ashore on this continent before them, and the defensible claim is narrower. They are the first Europeans known to have been deliberately left on the Australian mainland. As for the absorption story, this is Nanda and Yamachi country, and no Aboriginal tradition about them has been recorded. No published genetic finding supports it, and the fair-haired descendants claims trace to 19th century racial anxiety rather than to evidence. It is speculation. It should be left as speculation. Judic Bastians was twice widowed in the Indies, came home to Dordrecht, and made her will there at 27. The archives of that city record no death for her, so the file that names everyone stops naming people. It is complete in exactly the way a prosecution is complete. Everything it needed, nothing it did not. And the one act it records of the woman it names on a list of 7, a report about her brother, was signed off one day after the sentence it did not change. Hold the 2 pictures side by side, because they are the same picture. A kettle left hanging over a fire in a place with nothing for a household that did not come back to it, and a small boat drawn up on a beach at low water with the goods laid out on the sand beside it, knives, beads, bells and small mirrors set out by a court for 2 men nobody is recorded as seeing again. Whether either of them lived out that first week is not known.